Welcome back, and you're still watching Breakfast Show live on Nile TV International. And as we mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking in this segment of the show about climate change and global warming and its effect on the environment. And we're glad to be joined here at the studio by Dr. Wafik Noseir, member of the World Congress for Environment, who will shed more light on this issue. Good morning, sir, and thank you very much for joining.
Good morning to Egypt, and good morning to you.
Good morning, Mr. Wafik, and let me first ask you the usual question, a clear definition of the climate change and its importance, or the importance of caring to maintain it.
Yeah, climate change is
and achieving balance, of course. I mean, this is what I mean by the question.
Okay, climate change is a broad word because climate is changing all the time, so try to argue with this. What does that mean is that we have a debate between global warming and global cooling. That's why they have invented the phrase climate change. Climate change cover all, because climate changing all the time. But with severe conditions nowadays. That's the main topic that we want to talk about.
What are the main causes behind climate change, and how can we trace back its history?
Well, climate change was first addressed in Rio de Janeiro conference in 1992. And since then, people started to realize that the temperature of the planet is rising due to the effect of the greenhouse gases, which mainly comes from the fossil oil fuel like oil and coal. So it covers the earth with like a shade, and that's why it's called greenhouse gases. It's like the greenhouse. The greenhouse is used to cultivate certain plants in certain temperature. So it covers the planet, and it allows the sun rays to enter the atmosphere and doesn't allow it to go back. So it holds the temperature of the planet. So it raises its temperature from year to year.
What about the threat of global warming over oceans, over seas, over glaciers? And is it very dangerous, as they are always mentioning?
Well, actually it is dangerous, and we have noticed that. In the beginning, there were a lot of argues that it's not effective to the planet, but nowadays we have seen its effect with the melting of the ice in the North and South Poles, with the acidifications of the ocean, with the death of the coral reefs all over the world, especially in Australia. The coral reefs there is dying. So, and many other issues related to that, like desertification and lots of animals and plants is going to disappear. And it, of course, what's happening nowadays of dislocating of humans from certain areas to another areas.
I think deforestation is one of the main reasons also.
Yes, that's for sure. And we have noticed nowadays also the forest fires. The forest fires is very dangerous in America and in Europe, especially in Europe nowadays, with the remaining of the World War weapons and bombs in these forests. So it is very difficult for the firefighters to go enter.
You mean the mines?
Yeah, bombs, mines, yeah, of course, and whatever the type of weapons there, and with the heat, it explodes. So it is another danger to the firefighters to fight these fires. And nowadays it's running with huge amount, which is not normal. That's the thing that we have to put red light under. It's not normal. We are seeing extremes happening.
Right. Mentioning the forest fires, I mean, what are the main reasons and causes, the root causes for the forest fires, and what are the means of extinguishing it? Of course, the extinguishing the forest fires is totally different from extinguishing any normal fire. So, what are the how to be able to avoid the forest fires the best as we can? Of course, there are natural causes, but how can we be able to avoid it? What are the root causes for it?
Well, the root causes is a rise in temperature, is the global warming. It makes the forest very dry. And with any spark, even from a cigarette, it explodes. The fire starts. And this, in my opinion, is the main cause, if you ask about. Of course, it used to happen in the past, but not with this certain amounts. It's a huge amounts. Now it's happening in Europe, in Berlin, and there were a very big fire in Berlin, Germany. And in Europe in general, we have seen it in Greece, we have seen it in California, in America. So the main cause is the rise in temperature, weather temperature. We have seen the extremes. Every year nowadays, we used to say that 2017 was the most high temperature ever passed on the planet. But now 2018 is making a record as well.
Right. Doctor, how did human influences like industrialization, for example, how did it affect global warming and climate change?
Of course, the main cause, as I mentioned earlier, is fossil fuel. The fossil fuel with the industrialization started with industrial revolution in Europe just 100 years ago, and the main source for energy was oil. So the oil started to make a lot of CO2 gases in the weather, in the atmosphere, and this caused the global warming. Nowadays, people realize that, and of course there was deals happened. In 2015 was the agreement in Paris to avoid or to reduce the use of fossil oil, start to use the renewable energy. Unfortunately, this deal has broken down nowadays, and because of the withdrawal of many countries like USA and Russia and Turkey and Australia in the way. So one hand can clap. We have to, all the world put their hands together to get a result. And the result that the agreement was addressing, not to exceed 2 centigrade of temperature, raise in the planet Earth temperature.
Right. Usually people are not really, or recently, until the moment we are speaking, not everyone is very much aware of the climate change and its course, its natural courses, and the development of climate change, how to maintain a smooth transition of climate change, and all these elements. People are not really very aware of it. How to maintain awareness when it comes to climate change to the best interest of humanity, because there are dangers behind the threat of the climate change. over the health of humans and life and nature and everything?
Well, it's a big issue, and ironically, at the same year of the Paris Agreement for climate change, there was a very important agreement as well for the sustainable development. And the sustainable development, as we have come, the sustainable development agreement will last 15 years. It started 2015 and it's supposed to be until 2030. The agreement addresses the climate change, and it has 17 points. Number 13 is the climate change. So far, let me be frank with you, the world haven't yet realized that it's a very important issue that we all should cooperate to avoid and to go into the sustainable development with its 17 points. Let me quote what the UN phrased for the sustainable development, so we can understand what's the meaning of the sustainable development. Is the organizing principle of making human development while at the same time sustaining the ability of natural systems to provide the natural resources and ecosystems upon which the economy and society depend. Let me simplify this for the humans, for the Egyptians. It's like 3 circuits crossing each other. The 3 circuits are the environment and the society and the economic. With these 3 circuits crossed together, we get in the middle the sustainable development. If we can address these 3 circuits. Recently, they have added 2 boundaries to these 3 circuits, which is peace and partnership. Why is peace? Because we have seen around us, in many countries around us, the conflicts there, the war conflicts, does not even make them think ever of sustainable development or the environment in general. So peace is very important in this matter. The other thing is partnership. As I told you before, one hand cannot clap. So countries have to cooperate together, share its resources. What we cannot cultivate in our country, we can import from other countries, and vice versa. Energy even can be shared. We have seen that in the North Africa, where Algeria and Morocco started to build the biggest solar energy plants to export energy to Europe. So cooperation and partnership is very important in our talking for the sustainable development.
Right. So what are the physical evidence and effects of climate change and global warming?
Well, the physical evidence, we have seen it now very obvious. So there is no doubts about the global warming. The ice melting, and the rise of the sea level, the acidification. What I mean for oceans, ocean acidification. What I mean by this, let me explain it. CO2 gases are in the atmosphere. It is absorbed by the ocean. So the pH, which refers to the acids or alkaline in the ocean is not normal anymore. They started to be acidic. So this affect, because we are in acidification oceans, so the creatures in this ocean will be affected, and lots of them are dying, especially the coral reefs are dying. For some people will say, so what? No, it's a very important issue because it's a life circle. We are depending on them and they are depending on us. So the ecosystem, if any change happen to the ecosystem, on the only planet, let me phrase this very important, in the only planet that we can live on so far. What I mean by this, with all our discoveries in the space, and we have seen the universe, and there are argues, is it the Big Bang for one universe or it's many universes? How far is the planet that we can reach to live on instead of our planet? So all these questions that a lot of people are thinking about have not come yet to a planet like ours. So until we find another planet, let us cooperate to preserve it, to keep it to as God wants it to be.
Mm-hmm. Right. Sarah, how do you see the efforts being done so far to cope with climate change by Egypt and also by other countries? How are countries so far cooperating together to face this phenomenon?
Well, this is a very important question actually, because I am disappointed, if you want my word for it. Why? Because of the withdrawal of the global warming agreement, which part of its issues was to provide the developing countries like Egypt by a lot of money to cope with the renewable energy and to cope with the adapting of the effect that can happen from the global warming. This all collapsed. So efforts nowadays are either individual efforts or countries' efforts, which is not sufficient to my opinion. You have to have a global efforts to address the global problem. But each country can do whatever it can. This is not sufficient. And Egypt trying in this field, while we have a lot of gas discoveries and oil, so the renewable energy is not very important nowadays for Egypt. However, Egypt is not affecting the climate change for the world. The industrial world or the big countries like Europe and America and Russia and China. China is #1 polluting country nowadays in the world.
Right, Professor Dr. Wafik Noseir, member of the World Congress for Environment. Many thanks for joining us, sir.
Thanks to you, and hope Egypt will be always in a better environment.
Definitely, sir. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we now go to this short break and we'll be right back.